Hello and welcome to Atelier Sandrine Moji. Today we are going to talk about some oil paints, which is a bit unusual. Normally I work in watercolors, but I want to show you this set of oil paints by Schmincke. They are water-soluble oils, and the difference between those and the usual water-soluble oils is that these ones are made with sustainability in mind. They're environmentally friendly, they don't contain any animal products. They are not tested on animals, so they're cruelty-free. They're all wrapped in cardboard rather than plastic. So you can imagine, with my aim to work in a sustainable and ethical art practice, these obviously appeal to me and I'm really excited about trying them. I have a sort of basic set here, which I will paint little samples of for you. I also have the brushes that go with. And I have a couple of mediums as well that I'm going to show you. I have a painting medium, a gloss medium, and I will look at the effects they have on the paint and how they change the viscosity of the paint and the way to paint with them. And then at the end, I will show you a few landscapes that I have completed with those, so you can see what they look like when you do a painting with them. So those are the Schmincke Norma Blue water-soluble oils. Ready? Let's go. I'm going to start with a bit of general information about the color. It's water mixable, obviously, that's the whole point. All the colors are vegan. It's formulated with vegetable oils, but there's no cobalt, cadmium or zinc oxide pigments. And that is really important to me because that means that there's no toxic pigments that then get thrown into the waterways. Those are heavy metals, but also the cadmium has got some radioactive isotopes in it, so I'm really not happy using cadmiums. I never use them, so I'm really pleased to see a whole range that finally is brave enough to get rid of the cadmium. Really, they're low odor, so they're okay to use in a studio, and I can attest to that. They don't smell. They have a very slight smell, but it's really not overpowering. They don't have preservatives, which apparently make them allergy friendly. They're highly pigmented and all of them are light fast. They say here that their consistency is buttery and you can see brush marks on them, low yellowing, and they have a lot. What I found looking at them is that they have a lot of transparent colors. For my style of painting, that's important as well, but that's not important to everybody. I had a lovely note here from Suzanne, who sent me the box to test the paints with, and she says, "Dear Sandrine, here's our Norma Blue set for you to test and fall in love with. Enjoy." So we're going to see if that comes true. We're going to see if I fall in love with them. There are 48 colors in the range, and I have 8 in that box, and I have 2 more that I had bought already. So I'm going to show you 10 different colors. This is the color chart. It's actually a really useful color chart because they put the name of the pigment as well, which is super important to me. And I'm going to start with doing a little sample of the paints used pure to see how thick they are. Then I'm going to dilute straight away. I'm going to dilute them a little bit with water. And then in the second part, I'm going to try 4 different mediums that I have. I've got the gloss medium, the painting medium, the linseed oil, and an accelerator, a drying accelerator as well. So I'm going to show you all of that as well. And then I'm going to show you some paintings that I've done with them and talk a little bit more about my experience painting with them. So the first one is titanium white. And I'm also going to use the Da Vinci brushes that have been made to use with Norma Blue. So as you can see, I haven't tried those yet. I'm going to open them especially to do the test here. There's a flat brush, there's a flat one, but I think it's called a cat's tongue with a rounded top, a round brush and a splatter brush. I find when I work in oils, I actually use a lot of splatter brushes, which I don't really in watercolor. So I'm going to paint with this one because it's a bit bigger than the others, and this one is a little bit too big for what I'm doing here. So you can see that when I use it pure, it's quite thick and I can leave the brush marks on it. And then I can thin it just with pure water. and it still covers the paper really well. It adheres to the paper very well. So my paper here is a Canson paper. It's an oil canvas paper. So it has the texture of canvas, but really it is a sheet of paper. I tend to paint on canvas paper a lot more than I paint on canvas. And I'm just rinsing my brushes in water, and then I dab them on a cloth. But you can see they're quite hard to rinse. I don't know if the brush is stained or if the paint hasn't gone out of it completely. I'm going to find out more when I start using darker colors, I expect. Then we have lemon yellow. So lemon yellow, I was very pleased to see that it's PY3, the pigment PY3 now, which is, in my opinion, kind of the only good lemon yellow. And yeah, it's super buttery. It's lovely. It's actually really nice to play with. And then with water, see if I can keep, by diluting, if I can keep the intensity. That's going to be very important. And you can see that even thinned a lot. I just dipped my brush in the water. So I didn't even dab it to dry it, and you can see the intensity is very good even when it's thinned a lot with water. And it seems that the yellow is cleaned off okay. Now I've got a color that wasn't in the set but that I had already, which is Indian yellow. And that's PY110, which is a classic Indian yellow pigment. But in it as well is PY128. And when I saw that, I was quite surprised. It's a pigment I am actually not familiar with. I did not know what it was. I've been overgenerous with my lemon yellow patch here. But actually, it's a good opportunity to see how they mix. Like, nice gradation between the two of them. Happy accident. So back to PY128. I did some research, obviously, because I was like, ooh, pigment, I don't know. So I looked it up, and the reason I don't know it is because it's not used in watercolors, but it is used a lot in oils. I just didn't know it because normally I don't paint in oils. Then we have cadmium red hue medium. So being a cadmium red hue means that it's not a real cadmium red. And you can see when you use it quite thickly that it catches the texture of the canvas and gives a broken texture. So it's thick enough to do that. But then you can spread it and cover the whole canvas, the whole texture, even when you don't dilute it. You need to work it into it though. And then with water, I'm going to try not to mix it this time so that I get the pure red. So back to cadmium. Cadmium red hue medium means that it's a cadmium medium. So it's not cadmium light or cadmium dark, but it is a hue. When you see hue, I have a whole video of it. I'll put the link into the description to explain exactly what hue means in different situations, and if it's a good thing or a bad thing. In this situation, having cadmium hue for me is a good thing because that means it's not the real cadmium. Seeing as I do not want to use the real cadmium, having a fake cadmium for me is better. The reason they still call it cadmium red hue is that it is the color of cadmium, but it is not cadmium, and it's a cadmium medium color. And PR254 is a pyrrole red, and PY216 is a yellow. So it's a pyrrole red with a little bit of yellow in it. Then we have madder red. Madder red is more of a crimson If you're familiar probably with alizarin crimson, it's more that kind of color. And it's made of PR207, which is quinacridone scarlet, mixed with a pyrrole red. And it makes a beautiful violet bias red. And diluted with water, you get that color. And you see with, after all, when I've done the stronger colors, that my brush actually cleans very well. I'm only using water to clean it, and it cleans the oils from it very well. Then we have Prussian blue. So Prussian blue was in a set that they sent me that I showed you earlier in the video. And the pigment in that is PB27, which is the real Prussian blue. I must say I was a little bit surprised by that choice. I don't use Prussian blue in my watercolors. Oh, it's super thick. I would have thought that French ultramarine would have been a better choice for the blue because it's more saturated. Prussian blue is not that saturated. But that's the choice they made for the blue in the set. And there's only one blue in that set. And you can see if I water it down more, that it is not the most saturated of blue. So French ultramarine, I think, personally, would have been a better choice in the set. But it might be because, you know, I'm from a watercolor background, and I always think it's a lot easier to dull down a color that's too bright than to brighten up a color that's too dull. So to me, as an only blue for painting, I would probably struggle with that because it's really not saturated. I would have gone for a cyanine blue, or French ultramarine is my favorite blue, especially as with oils, you don't have the granulating problem so much that you would have with watercolor. Then we have chromium oxide green. So it is called chromium oxide green brilliant. But actually the pigment in it is PG18. And PG18 is not chromium oxide green. PG18 is Viridian. And here we are, your classic Viridian. So Viridian is a very blue bias green, but it's a green I actually really like. It's got bad press amongst a lot of artists for being too garish sometimes, or for being too weak. And it is true. You see, as soon as I add water to it, it's quite a weak pigment. But I really like the color of it, and you can mix some beautiful grays with it. And I don't know why they called that chromium oxide green brilliant and then put a Viridian pigment in it. I don't know why they just didn't call it Viridian, because it's obviously Viridian in color. Viridian is the only pigment in there, and that's the real Viridian, PG18. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But it's a good green. And then natural light ochre. So it's called natural light ochre. And it's got PY42 in there, which is indeed natural ochre. But it also has PY43, which is a synthetic iron pigment. So although it's called natural light ochre, it has a bit of a synthetic pigment in it. See, the green had a bit more trouble getting cleaned off the brush. I can still see some green in there. So that's messed up my sample a little bit. You can see when I do this that there's still some green in it. I can't really quite get rid of it. So my ochre has gone a little bit yucky because of it. So you can really see the difference with the brush marks in the dry, pure color and how smooth it gets when you add water to it. And that's without the medium. I'll try the medium later. Then I have Payne's Grey. So Payne's Grey was not in the set. Payne's Grey is a color that I already had. And it's a mix of a lot of things. There's violet in it. There's ultramarine. So it's dioxazine violet, PV23. I'm not fond of that because it's a very controversial pigment. It's not always light fasting test, depends a bit on who does the test. So I'm not too sure about having PV23. PV29 is French ultramarine, and then 2 different blacks in there. And when you dilute it, it has that purple tinge to it. It's softer than a pure black, and because it has that purple tinge to it, it's quite good for shadows. It's a really, really nice color. It works really well for stormy skies. I tend to paint a lot of stormy skies, and this is a really good one for it. And then to finish with one that was in the set, mineral black. Classic black, vegan black. Most blacks are not actually vegan, so it's quite nice to have a vegan black. And when I paint in watercolors, I absolutely do not use black. But when I paint in oils, I do. And you can see the difference. Payne's grey on its own looked quite black, but when you actually put a pure black next to it, you can see that Payne's grey has got that purple tinge to it. Really nice purple tinge. Right, now I'm gonna go and clean my brush properly. I'm gonna leave that to dry a little bit, and then I'll start working on the mediums. So it's been about 4 days since I did these samples. The ones that I have watered down with water, some are still completely wet, some are not. So it seems that it depends. The yellow and the red are still wet. The blues, the greens, and the greys are not. So it seems it depends on which color you're using for the drying time. Obviously those, I don't even dare to touch them, but these are still completely wet because these were really painted extremely thickly. But when thinned down with water, it depends which one. Now I'm going to try the gloss medium. The gloss medium is a transparent medium that you use for glazing, so that's finishing the work, that's a top coat, and it enhances the gloss, but it also thins down the paint while keeping the gloss, which just doing it with water might not do. So I'm going to put some in a little dish, and I'm only going to use it on a couple of colors. I'm not going to do all the colors. I'm going to do some darkish colors. So I'm going to do one that stayed wet and one that dried and see what happens. So I've got Madder Red and Prussian Blue. And I'm going to use those two with all the mediums. So I cleaned the Nova Blue brush with water and a soap, a special brush soap. And it doesn't feel quite as new. You can feel that it's a little bit clogged up, but really not very much. So the paint's cleaned off very well from the special Da Vinci Nova Blue brush. Now let's try the gloss medium. So it's a very thick, syrupy. I would compare it to syrup. It doesn't make the paint quite as watery as the water did, but it thins it down a lot. And now the blue. So you can see that the paper gets covered a lot more easily. It goes into the texture and it does add brilliance to the paint. It is glossier. It's actually really nice because it covers the paper completely, but with no thickness at all. But it also doesn't run down like water does. It also softens the brush mark, so the film of paint is a lot smoother than without the medium. And you can use both. You can mix the medium with the water, have a 50-50, and then you get a bit of both effects. And you can also use it with traditional oil paints. So it works for the water mixable, but also with the traditional oils. And it's only for the top coat, not for the underneath. Now we're trying the painting medium. The painting medium I'm familiar with because this is the medium I have been using when using the Norma Blue paints. And I found that using the painting medium, the paint was covering the paper better. So you could really thin down without losing the integrity of the paint, and better than when you use the just water. And you can see that the paint really keeps a lot of intensity. When using this medium. So this one was a fat medium, this one is a lean medium. So the painting medium is oil-free, it's more watery. And what it does basically is that when you use this instead of water, you keep the oil paint feeling more than when you use just water. And it can't be used with traditional oils because it's oil-free, it's watery, this one. Now let's try the linseed oil. So when you look at the bottle, it doesn't show in the little cup I have here, but in the water, this is a little bit yellower than the painting medium. The painting medium is completely clear. This has got a yellow tinge to it. And the linseed oil can also be used with traditional oils. It works for both water mixable and traditional. And you can feel it when you use it. You can feel that it's a lot oilier than the other ones. I've got a bit of blue on my brush still. And this one smells a little bit more than the other ones. The other ones had no smell at all. This one you can really smell. It's a lovely smell. It does smell of linseed oil. The paint stays a lot thicker with it, but you can also water it right down. I really like the look of that. It keeps brush marks, you can see, a lot more than the others. So it's harder to do a smooth coat of paint. But that's the whole point of it. You can thin down your paint without losing the brushwork. So you can see that it has stained the paper a little bit, but not that much. You can still lift your paint. And if you like the smell of oil paints, then you feel right at home with this one. And the last medium I'm gonna try is the accelerator. This one, just like the name says, helps your paint dry more quickly. So it also dilutes the paint while keeping quite a lot of integrity to the paint film. All these mediums have done that. They've covered the paper without losing the color. I'm going to go quite thick to see. Obviously, the ratio then is going to go down, but I want to see how quickly this is going to dry. It's really glossy as well. It makes a very rich color. I haven't tried this one yet in a real painting situation. I really like the way the paint handles with this. And presumably that allows you to cover the paint with a second layer without disturbing the original layer more quickly than with the other mediums. So this one can also be used with traditional oil paints. It contains some of the linseed oil in it and a seccative. So the paint layers will be more resistant, they will dry more quickly, they will be a little more glossy as well and add a little bit of depth. So before I've used the painting medium and I've used the gloss medium in real paintings. The linseed oil and the accelerator are new to me, but I will try them in a real painting as well. I really like the gloss medium and the painting medium, and I enjoyed painting the sample. The one thing I would say about all these mediums is that all the bottles are very small, and I know with the painting medium, for example, if I paint on a large scale, I use like up to half a bottle for each painting. It's a lot. So I would quite like if Schmincke were to release those medium, especially the painting medium, in bigger bottles, because in those small bottles, it goes really quickly. Another thing I appreciate with water-based oil paints is that they clean up really easily from your skin. I mean, I get really messy when I paint. Even doing this, I was covered in paint. And my skin is quite delicate and I can't use really strong soaps or detergents on them. So I need to use something which is really gentle, and I can clean those in seconds really easily without having to use harsh soaps. Now I'm going to show you a couple of paintings, some in which I used the paint very light, some I used very dark colors. So for example, this one, I used a very pale yellow here with hardly any white in it, a little bit of white, but not a lot. But I used the painting medium to dilute my yellow, and that it's kept the yellow tinge that I wanted while barely covering the paper. And that's exactly what I wanted. And I've also used some pure medium in some parts to sort of discolor the layer of paint, and that's worked really well as well. And for more detailed work like this, I mean, my oil style is more sort of semi-abstract, is not representative like my botanical art, but I still from time to time like to do things that are more detailed with a small brush and just a single brush strokes. And that's worked really well for the dark, and that's worked well for the light. I got exactly the effect that I wanted on that. So that was using the painting medium on that. So it's not glossy. There's no gloss to it. It doesn't shine. It's very matte, but I didn't want gloss on this one. So that did the job perfectly. Now on this one, I used the black, so I went very dark. I've got a very thick film here. And here you can see the texture of the canvas. So, and here as well, I lifted quite a bit here. So I went right from a thick layer of black paint, you can feel it when you touch it, to just barely any paint at all. And it took both of those very well. I also painted on top of a layer of gesso here. It covered the brush. I used the palette knife for that, and the paint covered that beautifully. And all of that I did with the painting medium, and I used a little bit of a gloss medium on the sea at the end of it to give the sea a little bit more of a gloss, and that's worked well. And you can see the colors are beautiful. I'm very happy with the colors. Like on this, I wanted a sort of mix of lavender for the sky and turquoise for the sea. And I was able to mix exactly the colors I wanted with no trouble at all. And here I tore the paper and I painted on top of that. And even with the paper torn, which became like blotting paper almost, because there is no painting surface on that, is the core of the paper with no top. You can see here it's torn, it's tearing here. So I'm just tearing the paper. And it took the paint, it looks very matte obviously, but it took the paint fine. The paint sunk in that and covered it easily. And then the last one, I did something else. I actually crumpled the paper before I painted. So you can see my sheet of paper is very crumpled because I wanted the paint to gather on the creases. And again, it's worked pretty much exactly like I wanted. And I've managed to keep some brush strokes for the storm. I mean, I was at the top of a hill at the Trundle in the South Downs, and I could see the rain coming, the storm coming towards me, and it wasn't raining yet where I was sitting, but I could see it coming towards me, and I knew I was going to get drenched within minutes. And I really wanted to capture that moment because it felt very threatening, but at the same time quite funny because I was right at the top of the hill. I had walked, I don't know, 15 minutes to get up there. There was no escape. There was nowhere to go. So it was quite funny that I was trapped up there. And I could see that coming towards me, and there's nothing I could do to avoid it. And I did get really drenched. But I didn't do the painting up there, but I did the sketch up there, and I took notes about how it felt, and to put that in a painting later. And on the hills opposite at the back, obviously with those clouds, the fields looked really black. It was extremely overcast. There was a little bit of a glow on the horizon, but I could see that was way behind the storm, so I knew I wasn't escaped the storm. And there was a fire in a field, and you can see how black you can get with those paints, but then how easily you can merge from a very dark tone to a very light tone really effortlessly. That just happened on its own. I didn't have to work at it. And then the white covered that black really well. So it was smoke, so I didn't want to cover the black completely. I wanted the smoke to be transparent in some places, and then I wanted the smoke to merge into the clouds. And every effect that I was trying to achieve with the paint did for me really, really well. I didn't get frustrated at any point trying, when you know what you want to do, but you can't make your brush on your paint to do it. It didn't happen at any point during those paintings. So I'm not going to show you anymore because that's very anecdotal. It's just my work, really. But as a conclusion, I have completely adopted these paints. I'm going to order more colors because, especially with the blue, I feel a little bit limited here. I would like a different green, a more yellowy green, and I would like a more saturated blue, and perhaps also a burnt umber and a raw umber. So I'm going to order a few more colors, but I'm going to keep this up. I'm really enjoying painting in oils. Because my studio is part of my house, it's one of the front rooms, I can shut the door on it. I do shut the door on it to be, quiet when I paint. But whatever smell is in my studio will spread to the rest of the house. So these for me are perfect because apart from the linseed oil, but I actually don't mind my house smelling of linseed oil because I think it smells lovely. But it's not like an overpowering oil smell. So for this is really good for me. And also for the fact that I can wash it off my skin really easily without using anything harsh. That's a plus for me as well. So I definitely prefer using these than using traditional oils. They're also more environmentally friendly. And also, again, to me, the fact that the whole range is vegan, the whole branding of this is vegan. So I don't have to research pigments individually to see if I'm going to like them or not, if I can use them or not. I trust them. Schmincke have done that range. It's vegan. I know they've done it. They've done their research. They've done the research for me, basically. I don't have to look for things and research everything that I get. I can trust the range, and I love that. I love that I can just go in there, buy any color I want, and trust that it's going to be vegan and cruelty-free and environmentally friendly and a lot more ethical than any other that I could get. So, tried and tested. Schmincke Norma Blue water-soluble oils, 10 out of 10 for me. The only thing I would change is bigger bottles for the mediums and also having a brighter blue maybe in the basic set, because I think I would get frustrated with only having that blue to work with. So thank you to Suzanne for sending me these paints to try. I had fun doing this. And I will buy myself a few more colors and I will keep on using them. I hope this was useful. Let me know in the comments how you get on with them, if you've tried them as well, if you enjoy painting with them, or if you have any question about them. I've got a good brochure in there. I might find the answers to it, but also I've got a good contact at Schmincke. So if you have any question that you can't find any answer to, write them in the comments and I will get in touch with them. Just picking up a brochure, I get messy. Unbelievable. So I look forward to hearing from you in the comments, and I'll see you soon in another video in Atelier Sandrine Mogy. Happy painting. Bye.